Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of GXG News Network. That's right, we are the unofficial Amico source of wood grain comedy. Today, we have a first. We're going to have a live reaction to somebody hearing the story of the Intellivision Amico for the very first time. And I'm just going to give them the facts. I'm just going to give them what happened. It's going to be my son-in-law, Daniel. And he's going to listen to the story and he's going to react to what I'm telling him, right? I'm going to go through a timeline of events that happened and then we can go from there, okay? So Daniel, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So Daniel, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell you the story of Intellivision Amico. So you're asking, what is the Intellivision Amico? Let me tell you. It is a brand new console that was proposed to be launched. It was announced back in 2018, right? And the gentleman that was behind this project is, do you remember Earthworm Jim? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So remember the groovy sound? Groovy, remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so he did the sounds for that game. He did and he did the groovy. Right, so he was part of that team. He also did games like I believe he did the Terminator CD music from the Sega CD, I believe, and he did some others. He did an early Aladdin game, stuff like that. So he worked in the sound effects of the video game industry. He was also on a TV show. He was a host of TV show. So during the 90s and the 2000s, he was involved in the industry. Okay. So that's how he made a name for himself. Now, back in May of 2018, he announced that he had bought the old Intellivision brand. Remember the Atari and the Intellivision?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he bought the name of Intellivision, right? Which by that point, Mattel didn't own it anymore. He just bought the brand. And in October of that year, October 22nd of 2018, right, he announced that the console, that he wanted to put out. At that point, he said the console was going to be about $149 to $179 with every game exclusive to the platform, right? And nothing was going to be higher than E10, and the games were going to cost between $3 and $10 around there. So and the launch date was going to be October 10th, 2020, right? So at that point, he was projecting that he was going to finish this console in 2 years, right? So then the next year at Gamescom, he put out some samples. He put out breakout a little bit of what the console was going to be. And then later in that year, my granddaughter's over here laughing. Later in that year, on March 31st of 2021, the Amico becomes available for pre-order at GameStop, right?
2021.
Yes, March 31st, 2021. But it comes out now at a new price. It's $250.
Okay.
So the price increased, right?
$100.
Just about. And the way you would order it, you put a $100 deposit. You could also pay the full amount if you're dealing direct with them. But special editions of the console, they could go as high as $300, right? They ended up selling approximately 6,000 pre-orders, right? So you can imagine that 6,000 times 100. That's a good chunk of change, right? And at this point, everything was golden. It had a really good vibe, right? People were excited, even though the price was a little higher. The old man cringe community, as I call them, people my age were really excited for this console, even though it wasn't being marketed to them, right? The whole point of this console was for families to play together like they did back in the day. Remember back in the day, we just used to sit around and play with each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the couch
co-op.
Yeah, the co-op couch games.
Yes. Okay. So, and at this point, everything seems to be on the up and up. this gentleman was funding the project himself because, everybody thought he was a millionaire. And, at this point, I was even, for it. It's just some guy spending his own millions of dollars trying to make a console and, okay, whatever. He was trying to bring back also a lot of the older games. So he was making remakes of the older games like, Moon Patrol, and he was going to do a new Cloudy Mountain and Night Stalker with new graphics. So even though there were older games, he was updating the graphics.
Like Atari 2.
Yes, like the Atari Recharge series, something like along those lines, okay? But everything was cool because he said he wasn't going to ask people for money. He wasn't, he was going to do it himself. Well, it turns out that that wasn't the case. He ended up asking for investors for his company, right? So he then launched a crowdfunding campaign through a couple of websites. One of them was Fig, the other one was Republic, or they became one company. But anyway, he ends up raising $11 million, right, for the console to come out. He said he needed a little bit of fuel, that he was almost there. He just needed this little last amount of money in order to get the console made. At this point, I became a detractor because I was like, wait a minute, you said you were going to do it yourself. And in his pitch video, okay, and this is really important, when he asked people for money, he told them that there was the possibility of them earning 10x returns. So if you invested $1,000 in the company and that was the minimum investment, you could get $10,000.
Oh, okay.
Right? And later on that year, right, in December, you can start getting your money back. Like you can start getting that cash back. And it was going to go up to 10x and, all this stuff. So at that point, I did the math because the only way that people would get 10x is if this console sold more than the original Xbox, right? And that was really hard to do because if a company like Microsoft couldn't do it, right, that well when they first started out, how was he going to do it as a brand new company and exceed Microsoft, right? It wasn't, to me, it wasn't really plausible, right? For such a small company to outdo a giant like Microsoft, it just didn't make sense, right? And then promising people that they were going to make 10x returns based on those sales projections, right? And a lot of what they said in that investment video was just not plausible, right? It just didn't make sense, right? So here comes a time to launch the console, and guess what? They delay the console. They had problems because of the pandemic, the chip shortages. I mean, you were familiar with that, right? With the with the whole not being able to get parts from overseas and stuff like that. So it was understandable that they couldn't launch in October, right, because of the pandemic. So they delayed it till the next year, early February 2021, around there, right? That was their new date. But then when it came that date, they saw that they weren't going to make that either. So then they delayed it until October 10th, 2021. And they really liked that October 10th date because that was the date that Tommy's sister has passed away or something like that. And that's why this was a special date for him. Now, another thing that was mentioned on these investment videos, and the reason I mentioned Xbox is because he said that he had Jay Allard working on the team at Intellivision, right? And he was the guy that, he worked with the Microsoft Xbox, right?
Oh, wow.
Yes. And, Allard had indeed joined the project in some capacity. I believe he was a global managing director. But he left that summer. So when he makes that video that the investor saw, he was no longer working there.
Oh, okay.
Right? Even though he said he was making great contributions, the man wasn't there anymore. right? So that was something else that gave me a reason to pause, if you will, right? Because why would you say that if the man wasn't there?
Yeah.
And when they asked him, the guy said, well, it wasn't a good fit. Now, I don't know if you know this, when you're raising money for investments, you have to be pretty clear. The government doesn't, mess around with that stuff, and they frown upon misinformation sometimes if that occurs, whether by commission or mission or by mistake. And they actually made an inquiry into this fundraiser so they could clarify, right, what Mr. Allard's involvement was. And Mr. Tallarico, he said that he had made great contributions, but when they answered the government, they said that he had no material contributions to the project.
Okay.
So one thing contradicted the other, right? So that's what they told the government, and I'm paraphrasing. It's just something like that, right? It's stuff you can look up, but basically the government intervened because they didn't feel that the information given in that video to Mr. Allard's involvement was correct, right? Anyway, so they also promised that a lot of these games were going to be exclusive to the console, right? So you can only play them in Amico, that you needed the Amico controller in order to play them. It was an integral part. But then a couple of games were revealed, like Evil Knievel, which is a cell phone game, right? They revamped it, they touched it up.
Okay.
But it's still a cell phone game. It wasn't exclusive per se. It just had exclusive content for this console. And then there's also a Sesame Street game that was based on Flash games that you could play for free on the internet. So let's just say they're not big. There were big technical achievements, if you will, right? There were not as expensive to produce as something that you would say would be an exclusive game for the console, right? Developing those games would be a lot cheaper. Now, during this time, they actually left the portal open to the company somehow. I don't know all the technicals, but basically somebody went into their server and snooped around and saw the specs of the console. Well, it turns out that the specs of the console is based on a cell phone chip from 2016.
Oh.
Right? So it's not the most powerful thing, but they said it's all about gameplay. It's not really about the power of the console, so it really doesn't matter. It's whether you have fun with it or not, right? But when that happened, and the press reported on that, game journalists reporting on that, the CEO was so upset he threatened to sue some people. But of course you can't do that because it's publicly known information, and it's somebody's mistake that left that open, right? So you follow me along so far, right? I'm trying to give you all the data because in the end, what we're trying to do here is I want to get your opinion to whether you think this was on the up and up.
Okay, so
right?
So that's a lot of information. So Earthworm Jim, Johnny, told
Tommy Tallarico.
Tommy told Tallarico. Tommy Tallarico told a bunch of people publicly that he's making a game console. He bought Atari
in television.
And he's gonna revamp
the games.
Television games. Did he do Atari too?
No. Just well, television. he did buy a couple of Atari licenses.
Okay,
like
Pitfall.
No, he bought Missile Command and
Command. Oh,
yes,
yeah.
and it doesn't look that great. Let me just put it to you that way. Okay. It's not my favorite version of Missile Command. What he did.
Okay, the original is always going to be the.
Yeah.
Okay, and all right, and then
he said he was only going to charge $150 for the console, $179.
It went up $100.
Yeah.
Then the delay.
Yes.
A year.
We're up to 2 delays.
2 delays. Okay.
There's more coming.
Okay. People were excited. They started investing because naturally people get excited about something new. In the gaming industry.
Yes.
I would be super excited. And just like I'm excited about VR coming out, and then, or even retro games, I would be really excited. And then people started investing, and he made a video and said that an Xbox, a Microsoft, a big name from Microsoft was helping him out. But at the time he made the video telling the investors that this big name from Microsoft was going to help him out, the big name from Microsoft had already left. So that was already like a lie, because Earthworm Tommy?
Yeah, Tommy Tallarico. By the way, Tommy Tallarico happens to be the cousin of Steven Tyler of Aerosmith.
Oh.
Yeah. Now,
the brother?
No, the cousin.
The cousin.
Yes, the cousin. Because Steven Tyler's last name is Tallarico also. According to him. I mean, if he is to be believed, and I have no reason why I would doubt that.
The cousin of Aerosmith. Oh.
Yeah. I don't think he lied about that. I mean, just so you know, Steven Tyler has been accused of a crime of something this week, right? Something that I can't even mention on this video because we're not going to be able to publish it. But
who's Steven?
Steven Tyler is the lead singer of Aerosmith. He's Tommy's cousin. Yes. Okay, so now what happens? Let's.
Okay, so I'm caught up.
Okay, so now after this happens, in June of 2021, he really starts engaging in a lot of forums, and because people now are criticizing him because there's delays, but because of the Allard stuff, but because of all that's happening, he's going back and forth with people on the internet, right? Like trolls and people that are insulting him. He's going back and forth, and it's not looking really good. It's not the most professional of jobs, right?
Okay.
I mean, because one thing is you or me or somebody else going on the internet, going back and forth, but usually the owner of the company, right, or the CEO doesn't go on Twitter and start fighting with people, right? So that was a little off-putting to a lot of people. But what happens now in August 8th of 2021, they delay it again. Right. They delay it again until the end of year 2021. Right. And the way they did it was they actually announced it like on a Friday night at midnight.
Okay.
Right. So nobody knew what was going on really until the next week, when everybody's like, like if you had a pre-order, you get this email that said, hey, we're just delayed until 2021. At the end of 2021. Now, remember, at the end of this 2021 year is when people are supposed to start getting their money back from their investments, right? All this 10x that was promised.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So now people are concerned because, what's going to happen? They're supposed to start getting money this year, and now the console's delayed, this and that and the other. So
was he blaming the chip shortage again?
Yes.
Okay.
Not only that, it was also discovered, right? It was also discovered that they had a lawsuit with a manufacturer because something went down. We don't know exactly what at this point. But there was a screw up in manufacturing, and they were in dispute with the manufacturer that was going to make these consoles for like $1 million. So they lost $1 million in that deal right off the bat.
Okay.
Right? So now they're on top of everything else. They're even down $1 million. So they decided to do these deep dives, right, where they were going to show off the games that the Intellivision would play.
Okay.
Right? But, and guys, I know for the listeners out there, I'm not going through everything in, specific order. I'm just trying to give them all the information, as much as I can, so he can make just an independent decision, right, of what he thinks. So they start doing these demos. So all the games, the more popular games that were promised were not being demoed. We're getting these alternate games that, people were not really excited for. One of them was Tank Battle, or Tanks, right? And they put it out on YouTube, and it's just a tank battle game. Like imagine the old Atari tank battle, but with updated graphics, or something you would find on a cell phone today, just a simple pick up and play kind of game. So then the CEO and the chief technology officer go on YouTube and start playing this game. Well, guess what? They had borrowed assets. They had graphics from other video games on their video game.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So then, of course, the internet being the internet, they saw, wait a minute, this belongs to another game.
Yeah.
This graphic here belongs to another game. What's going on? So then, they took it down, right? And then they re-uploaded, and it looks like they still have a couple of things, but I mean, it was a whole screw up there. I mean, it was really a bad look. And then on top of that, they had played the Moon Patrol sample, the demo. And the Moon Patrol demo had an opening text crawl of the Nintendo 64 Star Fox.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're just usually placeholders, I mean, that stuff does happen while you're trying to develop stuff, but it just wasn't a good look for it to come out publicly, you know what I'm saying? It is part of the industry. But while all this is going on, in December, he's still on the Atari forums because, of course, people are making fun of him now for, these publicity disasters. And he's going back and forth. And in February 7th, around there, it was revealed that he had stepped down as CEO. So he was no longer running the show.
Oh, what?
Yeah, they named somebody else as a CEO, right? And then at the same time that this is going on, they try to do another crowdfunding, even though they haven't paid their investors from the original crowdfunding, right? And they were looking for $5 million. They didn't end up raising more. They only raised like $58,000 because at this point, people were not confident, let's just say, that they were able to do the things that we're going to do. And at this point, you had even previous investors that are a fan of the Intellivision Amico. You have previous investors commenting on these forums to encourage investing, but they weren't revealing that they were investors. So they were kind of doing it under the table, if you will.
Oh, okay.
But then the public that was following the story exposed them and say, wait a minute, you're saying this, but you're an actual investor. You need to reveal that because if you don't, it violates the, FTC rules.
Investors are trying to get other people to have their own investment.
Yes,
Okay.
basically. Even if they say they didn't, that's basically what you're doing. And that investment ended up shutting down. And it looks like the website themselves shut it down, right? Because it wasn't passing the smell test. But what came out of that, right? What came out of that filing is this. They had to give their financials, right? And at that point, it was revealed that the company only had a few months of revenue before they went out of money.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Not only that, they had to reveal that the principals of the company had lent the company money, but at really, really high interest rates, right? So, let's say, for example, Mr. Tallarico, and I'm just giving you ballpark numbers here. These are not exact figures, right? So he lent $400,000. He would get out of that loan, he would earn $173,000 in interest, right? I mean, it was something to behold.
Yeah.
Right? They were making money on the money that they were lending the company, and the money that they used to pay themselves back was the initial investor money that was raised, right? So, and while this is going on, that they have offices. They're moving to bigger offices, and people are really concerned because there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of showmanship, but there's no consoles, right? The one thing that you want to see is consoles and games, and you're not seeing them.
And there was no actual physical console yet?
No. What they produced is those games you see on the shelf right there, those light blue games. Those they call physical products, right? That are supposed to be with a console. Once the console comes out, you're supposed to tap them. But since there's no console, they're just really collector's boxes right now, right? They have like a little collector coin. They open up, but the fact is that they're not games. You can't even play it on Steam. You can't redeem them on a cell phone. They can only be played on the console, but if there's no console, all you have is a box and a piece of plastic and a coin.
Wow, okay.
Right. And to produce those, they got some government grants from Germany.
Wow.
Right? And in those grants, it gets better, right? And you know, when you hear this stuff, I'm not making it up. This is not a joke. They came up with a concept of the Karma engine that had like a patent pending type stuff, right?
Wow.
At least that's what I was reported, right? But it turns out that the Karma engine can't be patented because it's just a marketing ploy. You know, it's like something to pump up the console, right? It's like blast processing back in the day with a Sega, right? Like it worked, but in a specific manner, but it really is just marketing to market something, right? Okay. So, with that said, now we're in April 7th, 2022, earlier this year.
Okay.
And GameStop and other outlets start canceling pre-orders because even though they had people there that the CEO claimed that were making six figures, and some of them were, according to the filings to the government, nobody told GameStop that there was no consoles. So GameStop was starting to, you know, charge people for their orders, even though there wasn't any consoles.
There's no console.
Right? So it became another public disaster, right? Now, you see all these people doing all these things and producing all these things, and the biggest way this console was promoted was through small YouTubers. You know, the CEO will go on there on specific small channels that were fan of his, and he'd give these long interviews like we're interviewing right now, and that's the way he would pump up the console. And you know, and a lot of it was the target audience that was mostly investing in this thing, you know, and buying the games. And but by this time, everybody had lost all confidence. You had a new CEO that wasn't really saying much, not doing anything. And ever since then, we really have nothing. And the last couple of things that have happened is that you've had a video come out by H Bomber Guy revealing that Mr. Tallarico likes to, let's just say, exaggerate some things about himself, right? Some of his achievements, this and that and the other. And he highlighted what went on in the investments. And let's just say it doesn't put him in a good light. It makes him look like somebody whose word should not be trusted. This video now holds about 4.1 million views, more than any other video that he did on his own or the company did on his own. So his reputation is completely destroyed because of this right?
Video, okay.
And the guy laid it out with, you know, facts, with things that he said. So, I mean, the video is pretty damning for somebody's reputation, the way it was laid out. And the latest thing that happened that was revealed, you know, earlier this week is that he was part of a lawsuit against the company for about, it was over $110,000 because the furniture that they ordered for the offices was, you know, bought on credit, and they were supposed to pay $3,000 a month, right? $3,000 a month in payments every month in order to keep their furniture, but they closed down the warehouse. There's no warehouse, there's nothing. They ended up repoing the furniture, right? And now he's in this lawsuit where he made a personal guarantee, and that's why he's a part of the lawsuit, because he personally guaranteed that he was paid this money back. And of course, you know, the reason you have a lawsuit is because the money hasn't been paid, right? And the new CEO said, I think about more than a month ago, that in a couple of weeks he was going to give us an update of what the state of the console was. And there is no update as of yet. And the only information that we get now from the company is a YouTube show that is hosted by an undisclosed investor. He invested in the company. He's a super fan of Mr. Tallarico, along with a couple other gentlemen in there. and they're still, propping up the console. They say they are testing it, that it's not a scam, that it's going to come out. But he doesn't reveal he's an investor, and at some point, since they're out of money, they're going to need money to produce these. So a lot of people think that the only reason for this show is to give good publicity to the company in order for them to ask for money again, right? And that, mostly, there's a lot of other stuff that I left out, and you can look this up on the internet if you want to have a chuckle, right? But that is the story of the Intellivision Amico, basically, right? And I'm sure I left plenty of things out, but I just wanted to give you the gist of this story.
Oh, man.
Right? So...
That's quite a story.
Yeah, it is.
Multiple years. A lot of backs and forths and switches and chip shortages and pandemics and promises and people backing down. This is like a novela.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it.
This is like a novela. I like it.
Yes, and I told people this thing, because this was happening throughout the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, my friends on YouTube and I, were making videos during this time, and we really were thankful that it happened, because it was the entertainment we had. If you remember, we're locked up, right?
Yeah.
And here comes this guy, and he's talking about this console, and he's going to do this and that and the other, and we're just like,
oh yeah, that would excite me. I mean, yeah.
And then when stuff started going wrong, of course, then came the drama, and then that's also entertaining, right?
Oh yeah,
so,
definitely.
That is what happened with this console. Now let me ask you, right? With the information that I gave you,
okay.
Do you think that this project was on the up and up, or what is your gut feeling in this story that I told you?
My gut feeling, and we're being completely honest, my gut feeling is that sometimes there's people that Tommy,
mm-hmm.
he 100% gut feeling.
Yeah.
Probably because he's pretty wealthy and rich, probably was with a bunch of friends or something like that, and I feel like he may have and this is, I'm not like claiming this, but
yeah, no, I mean, just there's no wrong answers here, Daniel. You just say whatever comes to mind, whatever your gut is telling you, right? You just heard the story for the very first time.
Okay.
You don't know anything about anything. I think like, if I was telling you,
okay,
do you want to invest here? What do you want to do?
I'll be okay. 100% honest. I think that maybe him and a bunch of his buddies were at his $1 million house partying, and they got high, and then they thought of this idea of making this new console, and they were like, yeah, let's do it, and they started like going back and forth, and they're like, yeah, this is gonna be great, it's gonna be awesome, we're gonna be rich, and then they went for it, but then the sobriety of reality and life just hit them sideways, and in addition to the pandemic and the chip shortage happening, I think that's their dream or ambition, or their idea that they thought up at their party, together, whether it was to scam people or to actually go for it. I'm leaning towards they were probably, maybe they were probably really trying to develop a new gaming system, and they thought that they were going to be able to do it, but the pandemic and the chip shortage, because I remember waiting for Halo Infinite to come out, and they just kept on delaying Halo, and this is Microsoft, and so I'm sure if Microsoft can be affected by people getting sick and companies closing down and chip shortages, then they probably got affected. And so I just believe that, like, it feels like they were at a party, they all got high, they thought of this big idea, and then reality just came in and smacked them.
Okay.
And they were just entirely they had investors in this, and people's money in it, and
let me give you this piece of information,
Okay.
right? Just for reference. During the same period of time, the Atari VCS, that console that's sitting over there, that little brown one, that was created during the same time period.
Oh, okay.
Right? And that one took $3 million to make. They raised $11 million and didn't do anything.
Okay.
Okay? So
maybe they just used all that money to party. Maybe they just used all that money to party, and they just kept on partying to kind of just like...
Well, there is a couple of gentlemen in that company. Let me tell you, there's two gentlemen in there, at least that I know, that are worth over $300 million. If not, maybe with the recession, maybe they're worth $280 million right now. So if those guys wanted, they really could fund the project.
They could have, okay.
Yeah, by themselves.
Okay.
But at this point, the people that put in deposits, some of them can't even get refunds anymore.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what? I don't think it's going to happen. I think their time is probably past. And whoever's CEO or whoever's working for that company is going to try to take as much money as they can to kind of just like bunker down and maybe pay out a couple million in lawsuits and being sued and stuff like that, and then try to survive.
Yes, a lot of people learned that, even though we can get excited about video games and we love video games, it's very different to invest in video games, right? And trying to, it's not easy to say, I'm going to make a console, because it's only been done very few times.
I 100% agree. Right? That's why it would be very difficult to go against all the people that are out there. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo.
Yes.
They're big names, and but at the same time, like, are they con artists? Did they con the people? Were they crazy enough or high enough to do like let's con a bunch of people? It's very difficult, I think, to it's such a big idea to con somebody like a console and not get in trouble or sued.
Yes, I mean we barely have the first lawsuit right now. And so this is just where it's at. I just wanted to give you an overview. I wanted to get a reaction of somebody who's never heard about it, right?
Yeah.
And
he's known to not tell the truth or exaggerate, like you said.
So at this point, right? At this point, we can end up like this. Do you think this console is going to come out?
Oh, gut feeling? No. Gut feeling? I think it's falling through. It fell through.
All right.
I think it fell through. It's too bad. And you know what? I'm right now, like, listening to it. I would love for it to come out. You and I were just talking about this earlier this morning. Like, it was great because I walked into your room and there was a Dreamcast next to a Saturn. And I was like, oh my God, you got a Dreamcast. I miss those days. Like, where there was multiple consoles out there. And I just miss those days where you had multiple consoles. And there are today, but in reality, everyone is just doing Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo.
Yes, I think a lot of people fall into a lot of these investment things because of nostalgia. Yes, right. And if somebody promises you,
I would have done the same thing.
Yes,
I would have done the same thing. I would have been so excited. I would have been working overtime just to put into this game to bring back nostalgia. And my wife was actually telling me because we bought tickets to Blink 182. And I was like, you know, the idiot that I am. I'm like, I don't understand paying all this money to go see these people play music. You know, it's a lot of money. You know, concerts are expensive. And then she looked me straight in the eyes, and it's like, it's not about them playing music in front of us, like something that you could do with your headphones. It's about the memories.
Yes.
And I'm like, it clicked. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. It is. It's about memories.
Yes. And so that's what they bank on.
That's what they banked on.
Yeah.
And they and you know, whoever invested in it, I mean, I would have been right with them. I wouldn't even feel. I would have been right there with them, like just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Bring on the next console. Bring on the next console. Just because of the memories. Like,
yes.
I remember mowing lawns and looking inside of my parents' couch cushions and filling up a jar for like a year just to save up enough money to get the NES in '89, and like. It's a big deal. Like, games are a huge deal to a big generation.
Yeah, you know what? And as we get older, right? As we get older and you have more disposable income, it's easier to invest in these things and to nostalgia get you. But at the end of the day, they have to be able to deliver. But you know, I really want to thank you for spending this time with me, right?
No problem.
To join me in this crazy idea that your father-in-law does.
Yeah.
Talking about this crazy console.
I love crazy.
Get those hits out there.
I love crazy.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
All right. Let's game.
Let's go.